When new parents leave their babies in hospitals, they believe their babies are in the safest possible hands. But in 2015, inside the neonatal unit of the Countess of Chester Hospital, sudden collapses and unexplained deaths revealed a darkness no one could fathom. We have tried to capture that darkness in a painting of a lone vulture in a desert surrounded by impossible green. What it means, we will let you interpret for yourself, though at the end, we share our own. If you love art with a touch of mystery, you're in the right place. Welcome to Mrs. Arty. If stories like this one leave you searching for answers in the shadows, please like and subscribe so you can join us as we uncover the next mystery on canvas. It was a warm evening in June 2015 when Mr. William Dunphy made his way down to the cafeteria at the Countess of Chester Hospital in the United Kingdom. Physically, he was exhausted, but mentally, he was elated. His wife Dorothy had just given birth to their daughter the day before. It had been a grueling 60-hour labor, but the delivery was successful. Still, things were not completely normal. Their daughter had some trouble breathing, and the doctors suspected a minor infection. As a precaution, they transferred her to the neonatal unit downstairs. The Dunphys were reassured it wasn't serious. William grabbed some dinner from the cafeteria to share with his wife, and the two chatted about the sleepless nights ahead before drifting into an exhausted sleep. In the middle of the night, a nurse shook them awake. "Something's wrong with your baby. You must come now," she said urgently. Dorothy was rushed to the neonatal unit in a wheelchair. There, they were confronted with a terrifying sight. Their daughter was surrounded by medics. One doctor desperately tried to resuscitate her, speaking frantically into a phone as someone held it to his ear. Then, with a heavy hand on his shoulder, another doctor told him to stop. The baby was gone. The Dunphys could do nothing but watch helplessly as their newborn daughter slipped away before their eyes. The doctors themselves were shaken. During the resuscitation, one physician had noticed a strange purple rash in the baby's abdomen, appearing and disappearing without explanation. No one could make sense of it. Weeks later, Mr. and Mrs. Eastby arrived at the same hospital. For them, the year had been filled with both joy and struggle. Doctors had once told Mrs. Eastby it would be difficult for her to conceive. So when they discovered on Valentine's Day that they were expecting twins, they were overjoyed. But complications followed, and she required special care. The babies arrived 10 weeks early, and though the couple had planned to deliver at Liverpool Women's Hospital, there were no beds available at the time. Their only choice was to drive 30 miles to Chester. The twins were delivered safely by cesarean section, but because of their prematurity, they were placed in a neonatal unit. A few days later, as Mrs. Eastby carried breast milk to her babies, she hummed a tune, relieved that the newborns were doing so well. She had even grown friendly with one of the nurses, a kind and chatty young woman named Lucy Letby. But that night, everything changed. As Mrs. Eastby approached the unit, she heard a baby crying loud, distressed and unlike anything she had ever heard. She rushed to her son's incubator and froze in horror. A pool of blood had formed in his mouth. She frantically turned to Lucy. "Lucy, what's the matter with him?" "Don't worry, everything will be fine," Lucy said. "I've notified the doctors. Go back to your ward, we'll take care of him." Trying to calm herself, Mrs. Eastby returned to her room and called her husband. He reminded her that their son was in expert hands. But later that night, the phone rang twice. The first call urged him to come quickly. The baby wasn't doing so well. The second call was worse. The priest had been summoned. Their baby boy died soon afterwards. Again, the doctor noticed the same strange purple rash. Two unexplained infant deaths so close together left the staff shaken and mystified. Outside the hospital, the nurse Lucy Letby lived what seemed like an ordinary and even admirable life. She was described by friends as quiet, kind, and devoted to her work. Born in Hereford, she was the first in her family to attend university, graduating as a children's nurse in 2011. She lived alone in a modest house and spent her free time with friends, going to the gym, or posting cheerful photos on social media with her pet cat. Colleagues remembered her as Smiley Lucy, someone who brought cakes to the ward and appeared genuinely dedicated to caring for sick infants. Nothing in her private life suggested the darkness she was hiding. Months later, Dr. Ravi Jayaram, a consultant pediatrician, sat reading medical journals on his iPad, searching desperately for answers. Then, a single line in a paper caught his eye and sent a chill through him. It described air embolism, a condition where air enters the bloodstream, often leaving a telltale rash like the one he had seen. The horrifying thought struck him. Could someone be injecting air into these babies? He shared his fears with his colleague, Dr. Stephen Breary. Breary's reply was that of disbelief and shock. Not Lucy. Not nice Lucy. But suspicion deepened. Dr. Jayaram recalled seeing Lucy Letby standing silently over a baby as its oxygen levels plummeted. She did nothing to help, only stared. Reviewing the records, the doctors realized a strange anomaly. Letby had been present at every single suspicious death at the hospital. Soon, the stack of evidence piled up, and the correlation between Letby's presence and the unnatural death tally was just too high. Despite resistance from hospital administrators, who even forced the doctors to apologize to Letby, their persistence eventually paid off. Lucy Letby was arrested in July 2018. The trial became one of the most high-profile cases in recent British history. For months, newspaper and television stations covered every detail of the proceeding, painting Letby as the most prolific child killer in modern Britain. Families of the victims filled the courtroom, reliving their darkest days as the evidence was laid bare before the jury. The press described the trial as harrowing. The atmosphere was heavy with grief and disbelief. In August 2023, Lucy Letby was sentenced to life imprisonment. Letby showed little emotion as she was handed a whole life order, ensuring she would never leave prison. Outside, the story dominated headlines across the UK and around the world, an unimaginable betrayal of trust by a nurse sworn to care for the most vulnerable. The case, however, did not end neatly with the verdict. It ignited fierce debate across the country. For the families of the victims, the conviction confirmed what they had always feared, that their children had been deliberately taken from them by the very nurse they trusted. But even as the evidence was laid bare in court, a small but vocal group of supporters argued that Lucy Letby was innocent. They pointed out that there was no DNA, no fingerprints, no eyewitness ever catching her in the act, and so on. They claimed the hospital's failing, poor record keeping, and systematic problems had made her a scapegoat. To the grieving parents, however, such arguments felt unbearable, a denial of their suffering, a cruel echo of the very silence they endured when their warnings were ignored. In the end, the courtroom may have given its judgment, but outside the walls, the debate about Letby's guilt or innocence still lingers in the corners of the internet. And so we return to the painting. If this story were a painting, it would not be one of comfort. It would be a surreal vision. A lone vulture in the middle of a desert, yet strangely encircled by vivid green foliage. Life and death pressed together in one impossible frame. At first, the leaves suggest growth and renewal. But the longer you look, the more the vulture becomes the true subject, waiting, watching, patient in its hunger. A reminder that sometimes what appears nurturing can conceal the shadow of something far more sinister. This is our interpretation. Please leave your interpretation in the comment section.